The full moon on July 21st is a dramatic culmination to the Pluto and Capricorn story of rebuilding, upheaval, and power that has been playing out collectively as well as within your chart since 2008. So let's get into what this lunation means for you and your journey. Hi, my name is Haley Comet, and welcome to my Cosmic Corner of the Internet, where we discuss all things astrology, and today, all things Capricorn Full Moon, July 21st, 2024, and you. But it's not just a full moon, now is it? And it's not just July 2024, now is it? And that is because this particular lunation pulls in an ongoing story that has been playing out within your life and within your chart since 2008, as well as gives some interesting hints and foreshadows around where the next stage of your evolution is taking place. Now, the reason for this is because this Capricorn full moon aligns with Pluto, who is hovered at 0 degrees Aquarius. So yes, this full moon landing on Pluto could shine a spotlight around the next stage of our journey, the transformation that it will entail. But this lunation lands at 29 degrees Capricorn, which is a portion of the chart that is going to be relatively occupied within the latter half of 2024. That is because Pluto is currently retrograde and it will move back into Capricorn for its final tour before it settles into Aquarius for good in November 2024. And it retrogrades back to 29 degrees Capricorn, the exact sector of the sky that this full moon is located within. So we are not only getting hints and foreshadows around what our final work will be with the Pluto and Capricorn story finishing this fall, but we're also getting this contemplation around what this entire journey of Pluto and Capricorn has had in store for you. Where you've been asked to rebuild yourself, where you've been asked to tap into your power, where you have been asked to transform. And this full moon can really shine a spotlight to all of the evolution that has been alive within your world since 2008. And so this full moon is so much more than a full moon. It's both a peek into the future as well as a culmination of the past. So within this video, we'll look at where exactly this full moon lands within your chart to really weave in the bigger story that it's telling around where you have been asked to reinvent yourself, where you have been asked to evolve, where you have been asked to find your power, where you've been asked to have the courage to shed your comfort zone and step into the unknown. This particular full moon illuminates this part of your journey. And if you're familiar with my channel, with my content, you may know that I no longer do new and full moon all signs forecasts, but this particular lunation felt much too potent and much too pivotal not to do a dedicated deep dive into. And I do want to thank this week's sponsor, Keen, who made this all signs Capricorn full moon forecast possible. So if you are not familiar with Keen, Keen is an online psychic directory that links you to all sorts of talented, insightful advisors who utilize their gifts in order to provide you relevant, accurate insights to wherever it is you are being asked to currently evolve and transform with this full moon on Pluto. Pluto is the planet of fear and the planet of transformation. And obviously when we're stepping into this pivotal chapter around the next journey of our evolution, shedding the comfort zone of the cocoon to spread our wings as the butterfly, there's going to be some trepidation in that story, right? Of shedding our comfort zone. Even if we know that it's best for our soul growth, of course, there's going to be questions, there's going to be anxieties around stepping into the next iteration of your life and thus the next iteration of yourself, your soul, your growth. And what I love about Keen is that the advisors who have connected with on that platform have been so supportive to me, welcoming in change with open arms, answering my questions so that I'm not fearing the worst when it comes to the upcoming cycle of growth, as well as helping me to gain clarity around the big picture story that is playing out from a soul level. So Keen makes it super seamless to get set up, to find an advisor who you resonate with. You can answer some quick questions, to be matched with advisors who specialize in the modality that you're looking for, or who are specifically gifted in answering the questions of whatever it is that you have questions around, your love life, your finances, your business, your soul purpose, what have you. You can either connect with advisors on phone or chat function to make it super seamless to get your questions answered and be able to welcome in this next stage of your metamorphosis with open arms. So if you are new to Keen, you can use my link, which is trykeen.com/comet, to get your first 5-minute reading for just $1. So thank you so much, Keen, for making this month's Capricorn Full Moon All Signs forecast possible here in the Cosmic Corner. And without further ado, let's go ahead and take it into Full Moon in Capricorn, July 21st, 2024, rising like a phoenix from the ashes. So the powerful, transformative Capricorn Full Moon will exact on July 21st at 3:17 a.m. PDT. That is Pacific time zone. Please ensure to adjust to your local time zone, as this full moon may land at a different time or even on a different date, depending on where it is that you live as we experience this lunation. And regardless of where you are located within this wide, wonderful world during the time of this Capricorn full moon, one thing I can tell you is that this Capricorn full moon is charged with intensity. And this is partly because it is landing at 29 degrees Capricorn. Now, that activates a particular life arena within your chart and thus a particular story for your life. And we will get into that in our individual sign-by-sign analysis. But firstly, I want to speak to the overall collective themes, because 29 degrees is a urgent degree within astrology. So degrees within astrology goes 0 to 29. 29 is the final degree. And there is an urgency baked into this full moon, and you could have some urgent emotions come up. There could be some urgent secrets that are revealed. There could be this now or never feeling that is building within your life. And it's not that all of us are going to make all of these wild decisions within our external world, but there is this energy of building awareness of where something needs to change. Mid-July is rife with disruptions, and we see this with Mars Uranus, which happens a couple days prior. Just a heads up, I do a weekly horoscope series called Magic Monday. I take you through all of the different transits that we are experiencing. You can check that out. I'll link it below. I go into more detail on that transit here. But I do want to say that alignment is somewhat weaved into this Capricorn full moon. And there's this energy of disruption, this awareness of change, this awareness of where things are crumbling and where we need to rebuild, or where potentially we need to just walk away from the demolition, like stop trying to fix something that is just imploding. There's just some very unstable energies that are aligning mid-July. And for some of us, it could just be this awareness within around where something needs to change. And for some of us, you've known that. You've known that something needed to change, yet you could have suppressed it. And the very nature of Pluto is excavating our subconscious desires, the secrets that maybe even we're hiding from ourselves, right? Like there's definitely an energy around secrets being exposed with this full moon. But I feel for a lot of the collective, it's just ahas, like things that you have not been conscious of. And maybe you haven't been conscious of it because once you know something, you can't unknow it. Once you realize something or have the strength to look something in your life that needs change and transformation squarely ahead and not running from it, not denying it, you have to do something about it. And so maybe for some of us, the fear energy of Pluto has been the fear of confronting this element of transformation, this element of this aha and the evolution that it in turn will prompt. So with this full moon, there's definitely something coming to light. Now, to a collective level, with this lunation landing at 29 degrees Capricorn, this can absolutely be something coming to light around certain businesses, certain governmental structures. I definitely see with the Mars-Uranus alignment that trines this full moon, there can be certain rebellion that is alive. And Pluto is like the darker underbelly. It's the secrets that those in power don't necessarily want exposed. And it just feels like this full moon on Pluto is bringing certain things to the surface. And again, once you know something, you can't unknow it. And Pluto makes it clear that the only pathway forward is to transform. Like we might want to go back in time to the self that we were before we acknowledge certain truths, whether that's personally or collectively, but there is no rewinding of life. There's only progressing forward, and the only way out is through. And so I do see that there can be a crumbling of certain ideals or structures. And keep in mind, this is not just concentrated to July 2024. This has been underway since 2008. This energy of exposing big business and corporations and structures, that has been an ongoing process. And it just feels like it's reaching a culmination point. And with this energy of secrets being brought to light, there could be this energy around potentially society being more rebellious towards it or wanting to disrupt the status quo, as archetypally speaking, that is what Capricorn is associated with, to be able to empower a novel way of doing things. And we see this because this full moon is landing at 29 degrees Capricorn, and it conjoins Pluto, who's at 0 degrees Aquarius. So when tapping into the energy of this Capricorn full moon, it feels like having 1 foot within the past and 1 foot within the future, and being this bridge between. To a collective level, there could be this awareness around the way that things are operating is no longer sustainable. We are trying to fix a tower moment with band-aids, right? Like, once there has reached such a mass level of disillusionment with structures and those in power and those in charge and corporations and companies and all of these things, there is no regressing backwards. There is no deluding ourselves any longer around where transformation is necessary. And it just feels like there's something occurring with this full moon at this 29th degree around this urgent call around empowering a new way of doing things. Like, there's an energy around, things have been crumbling and things have been exposed. And this is just an energy where it's like, we can no longer delude ourselves here. Like, what are we doing here? This is not working. And when it comes to this portion of the chart, this is an active point of the sky, as this is the sector that Pluto will retrograde back into this fall. So like I said, not all of these themes are going to implode in July 2024. There just could be this awareness around things have really got to change at this point. Like, the status quo is no longer sustainable. Like, we're trying to uphold these structures where the foundation is literally bottoming out. That is the vibe. And with the full moon on Pluto and Aquarius, there's like this whisper, this hint. 0 degrees is the first degree in every sign, so it represents pure potentiality. And so with Pluto and Aquarius, it's around this awareness, 1 step in the old way, 1 step in the new way. The old way is falling away, our foot is falling through, and it's like, we don't exactly know what we're evolving into, but we have to choose who we as a society are evolving to be, rather than who we've been in the past. And it's not to say that this transition into the Pluto and Aquarius paradigm will be seamless, but there is this awareness around, we cannot keep doing things the way that they have always been done. There needs to be a new way, and this full moon is shining a spotlight on that. And I don't think we're going to get clarity around what that means or what the answers are going to be, but I do think collectively we're being asked to innovate and envision a new way of doing things. And so what we're being asked to do societally, but also for your chart, we're being asked to choose the future rather than the past, is really the energy that's aligning. But what's challenging about this full moon, and what's going to be challenging within your world, is that there's really not clarity around what's around the bend. Or if we take the analogy of 1 foot in the past, 1 foot in the future, like I said, the past is a rickety bridge that's falling away, but the future is kind of like a dark cave that we're like, I don't know what's in there. And we're being asked to jump away from the rickety bridge and choose the dark cave. Even if there's parts of that where it's like, I don't know what's in there, there's a lot of fear around the unknown, which this full moon can also be spotlighting with the full moon on Pluto. But the rickety bridge of the past is falling away. There's been too much that's been exposed. There's been too much that's come to light. There's been too much that has transpired to stay on the rickety bridge around, well, this is how things have always been done. And will the journey into the dark cave of the future that we don't have clarity what exactly it'll look like, will there be some growing pains around that, around discovering novel ways of doing things? Absolutely. But there is an energy around the rickety bridge of the past, of the status quo, is falling away. And the thing about Pluto is that, yes, it's about transformation, but it can also be quite a possessive energy. It could be around what we cling to or what we kind of get obsessed with, what we want to like sink our teeth into. And a lot of us during this full moon on Pluto are going to have some fears of the future surface. Full moon on Pluto, you can find around this full moon, you are feeling a little bit more paranoid. And when it comes to this full moon on Pluto, there can be an energy to cling to familiarity, even if it was not serving you. And this can show up within your individual life or within the collective around, this is horrible and it's inhumane and it's not just and it's not in alignment with my own integrity, but it's what I've known. Or this job is treating me so poorly, but it's what I've known. There could be an energy around clinging to and even vehemently defending elements of our life that have been fundamentally mistreating us, or certain status quos that we are upholding while still holding the knowledge around, this is not a status quo that I want to uphold. And there could be an energy with full moon on Pluto around fearing the future, fearing that dark cave around, either where society is going or my life is going. I don't want to go there. I'm scared. This is not my most powerful timeline, but it's familiar, it's comfortable. And there could be a temptation with this full moon to go down with the rickety bridge. Don't worry, you're gonna be safe. You are protected. I'm not saying there's a literal rickety bridge, but there could be a temptation energetically to keep yourself in your comfort zone because you are fearful of the dark cave of the future and the empowerment that that requires from you. Because Pluto energy is looking deep into our psyche, deep into our fears, and going through it. Pluto energy can be hell. Let's be forthright. It's about really doing the work around our shadow side, around our fears, around everything that we need to get to the other side of in order to really step into our power. Because the energy of Pluto, it's not power that's just sprinkled on us. It's earned power. It's the power that you have to stand on your own 2 feet once you have had to rebuild yourself fundamentally, once you have had to tear something down and rebuild, once you've had to overcome something that was so challenging. No one can take that from you. That's strength. That's earned strength. And for some of us, there could be this energy around not wanting to walk that path of resilience, of letting go of the familiar and stepping into what's beyond. But this full moon is asking you to do that. It's asking you to face a fear. It's asking you to face yourself, face your psyche, face where it is that you could keep yourself stuck or stagnant in structures that have outlived their purpose within your life. But with the energy of Capricorn, this can be an awareness around career potentially aspirations. This full moon obviously opposes the Cancer sun. And Cancer is really the energy around what's sacred to you. It's the energy of home and roots. And for some, there could just be this awareness around certain career aspirations that you have reached or ladders that you've been climbing, and just this awareness around, I no longer want to pursue this. Like, this has gotten off balance with the sort of lifestyle I've wanted to lead at home, or the certain family goals that I've had within my world. And for some, there could just be this awareness around all of this chasing and hustling for what? And that could be kind of existential sometimes, because the energy of Pluto could be just this energy of something crumbling. And it could be this essentially romanticized vision of what success was meant to do, or what these career goals were meant to do, that now that you've reached a certain level, it's like, it didn't do that. It's just fed my desire for the next milestone and the next milestone and the next milestone. For some, there can also just be this disillusionment around, I've worked this hard, potentially some of you maybe since 2008, I've worked this hard for what? And even if you feel like you have had a very rewarding, fulfilling career, there could just be this awareness around, I have something else that I'm feeling inspired to give the collective. I do feel like some of us are going to be called to kind of walk away from a path that might have been a little bit more traditional in order to step into something that could help humanity, honestly, with Pluto and Aquarius. Like I talked about within the Pluto and Aquarius video, I do feel like Pluto and Aquarius is calling upon a whole new generation of leaders, and perhaps you're one of them. And that could be scary, leaving something that you know that you are good at, or you've really chiseled your own identity within. It could create this crisis tower moment around, who am I outside of this career that I've built, or this fancy title that I have, or this ambition that I've always wanted, but now I don't feel as aligned with? Who am I? The only way we can find out is to move through it and not clinging to something that we know is an empty shell. It's not really what we are feeling called to move towards at this particular time. Of course, this is not going to play out within career within every single person, but I do feel that can be a spotlight. I also want to highlight that with this full moon on Pluto, there can be an acknowledgement around how much growth you have undergone since 2008. I know we have all sorts of different ages on this channel. You might be saying, Haley, Comet, I was 12 in 2008. Like, what do you mean? I've been on this transformative cycle since 2008. That is when Pluto entered Capricorn. And so just acknowledging both from a house perspective as well as just like from a soul perspective around what growth and transformation has been crystallized since this time. Just really acknowledging where you have been asked to rebuild, where you have been asked to face your fears, where you've had to have resilience, where you have had to face things falling apart, and where you've been asked to rebuild on what has fallen apart. And wherever Capricorn lands in within your chart, you may have had a challenging time finding stability in that sector, because fundamentally Pluto and stable are not words that we find in the same sentence. It is about transformation. And Pluto is a slow-moving planet. It's typically background noise when it's moving through a house. So there's definitely a transformation story there, but we really feel it activate or accentuate when it aspects one of our personal planets. But even if it's just been background noise for you since 2008, there likely have been arenas of your life in which you have had to deal with things ending. You've had to deal with potentially loss. You've had to deal with certain fears of control or things feeling out of control within that sector of your life. And whatever it is that you've been called to release within that sector of your chart, it's also important to acknowledge with this culmination point what you have gained within that sector of your chart. Because Pluto as a planet reminds us that we have so little control over this experience, fundamentally. And that sentence itself can be terrifying or it could be freeing, right? Around just how little control we have over things. It reminds me of this piece of art I used to have. It was like a random abstract piece, and it said, you can hold on to the handlebars if you like the illusion of control, but it's more freeing to let the wind carry you. Like, again, control is an illusion, and nobody will sharpen that into focus more so than Pluto energy is this illusion of control. And you could have found that the sector in which Pluto was transiting, it was like quicksand. It was like so hard to build within that arena. There could have just been punctuated experiences of needing to rebuild or needing to reinvent within that arena. And as much as Pluto could have taken from you within that arena, what you've gained is something that nobody can take from you, which is power, which is strength. And when it comes to Pluto energy, no one can take that from you. The strength that it took to keep going, to face your fears head on, to dig deep into the inner workings of your own psyche, of your own fears, of even having to deal, for some of you, even having to deal with losses, grief, very vampiric types, right? Power struggles. A lot of you could have had to experience that with Pluto in whichever sector that it's transiting. And with the energy of Pluto, it is around power. So really taking a moment to congratulate yourself for what it is that you have overcome within this sector of your chart, of the strength that it took for you to keep going. That when that tower crumbled, you had the faith to look up and find the star, right? Had the faith to keep going. And had the faith to choose who you were evolving to be rather than who you've been, which is uncomfortable. And I'm referring to tarot. If you're not familiar, the star card comes after tower, because once it's all crumbled, once you acknowledge it's crumbled, it's done, there's no other option but to have hope around, well, now I have this flat surface that I could build a new tower on, I guess, one that won't crumble and be on fire. And that energy of hope and potential renewal is even baked into this full moon. Even though it's intense, there could be fears coming to the surface, acknowledgements around where things are transforming, there's a whisper of hope and faith. And we see this come alive with this full moon's exact sextile to Neptune and Pisces. Now, sextile is an opportunity aspect. It's a very soft, subtle flow of energy. So I definitely feel like most of us are going to be feeling really emotional, really out of control, scared of where things are changing. That's going to be the dominant energy with the conjunction to Pluto that I do foresee. But there's a whisper that I want you to strengthen with the sextile to Neptune around having faith in the power of renewal, in having faith in the universe and how things are aligning, and having faith in the changes that they may make sense one day. Because with the energy of Pluto, there could just be certain things crumbling that you're just like, I so wanted it to be this. I so wanted it to be this career path. I so wanted it to be this person. And there could just be this awareness with full moon on Pluto, whether it's secrets being revealed or ahas coming from within, or just an awareness around, I cannot continue to put band-aids on a burning tower, right? There could just be something that's crumbling, and that could be heartbreaking. We see that even with the full moon squaring Chiron in Aries around, I so wanted it to be this. I so wanted it to be this. This is what I've been building towards with the energy of Capricorn. I so wanted it to be this, but I can no longer delude myself. And with the sextile to Neptune, if it's available to you, it would be helpful to just work that muscle around trusting. If this is crumbling, it's to pave the way for something even more aligned. If this career path is not working out, it's because Spirit is calling me towards something else. If this particular relationship, this person deceived me in some way, I need to trust that that is to carve room for my true life partner to enter stage left. It's a slight whisper, but there's an energy around trusting in the cycles, trusting in the universe. Now, for some, it could just be showing up around needing something to believe in, because sometimes that's what gets us through those tower moments or those dark nights of the soul, is having something to believe in. I know for me personally, like astrology was like a lifeline when I was moving through my stuff. And again, it doesn't need to be astrology for you. It could be, prayer, meditation, something that makes you feel connected to something bigger. Working that muscle around believing in something bigger than yourself to cope with your 3D reality, which at this moment for some might feel a little bleak or a little intense. Or even with this full moon on Pluto, some of us could be dealing with some fears. And again, I just want to be so clear, I'm not fear-mongering within this video. You are protected, you are supported. If anything, the sextile to Neptune just continues to affirm that. So I am not saying this to incite fear, but I made a promise when I started doing this that I would always be forthright with what I saw astrologically. And I just feel like some of us could be really needing to work the muscle of faith or spirituality in order for us to continue to have faith or to continue to have hope, because things could feel a little bleak or a little intense with the alignment to Pluto, whether it's certain things that you're acknowledging within your life or certain things that you're acknowledging within society. And with the sextile to Neptune, there could be this need to either feel connected to something bigger or for you to step up to offer compassion to the situation, to send love to a situation potentially. And so this full moon, as I briefly noted, it does square Chiron in Aries. There's part of the collective that could, to be blunt in my language, that could be feeling a little bit like a loser right now, okay? And you're not a loser, okay? What I see is that you could be making something individually your fault that is a societal failing around internalizing, well, if only I was smarter, or if only I made these sort of decisions, then I would be further along in life, then I would be successful, then I would be more powerful. And I just feel like it's important to convey to you that society and how it's structured is ultimately unfair, and I don't want you to internalize things that are a societal failing and make it a personal story. Now, can we strive to empower ourselves within the interim? Absolutely. I'm not saying this is energy around giving up on life or giving up on your dreams or what have you, but it's not internalizing things that are not your fault. Like if you're in a certain generation where it is just not societally feasible for you to purchase property or for you to do things that were prescribed as the proper way to do things, again, that's very Capricorn around this is how things are done. It's not internalizing that around why am I not living up to expectations. It's just like acknowledging that in terms of where it is that we are, there's new expectations that are being formed. Like with Pluto and Aquarius, it's not upholding yourself to last generation's standards of success or the American dream, and not making it personally about you. I also see this could potentially come up around if you were part of the collective I was talking to, where there is a calling around releasing a certain career path or releasing what you thought you wanted to pursue. With the square to Chiron, there can be certain triggers that brings up around, if I am not this job, if I am not this vision of success, who am I? I have equated my worth based on the milestones I reached and the quotas I met. Who am I if I'm not this? Like, some of you could have found that you have been equating your worthiness with what it is that you contributed within the public domain. And that could be something that's crumbling at this time with the full moon on Pluto. And it's giving yourself space for that in between to be a little confusing. Like with the square to Chiron, it could be like, well, who am I if not this? Not to say that you were hiding behind your ambitions or behind your public persona, but there could have been an energy around wanting to achieve your way out of healing. And now that the achievements aren't hitting in the same way that they used to, or you're walking away for something that you have achieved in or were successful in, there could be an energy around, well, now I have to deal with all this stuff that's been beneath the surface that I was hiding around being busy and going after all of these milestones. And some could be walking away from the path in which you didn't feel like you reached those milestones. And that can also make you confront this fear of failure with the full moon square Chiron, or this fear around just because you did not succeed in this particular path, that means you are a failure with the square to Chiron. And it's important not to let those stories of limitation and lack hold you back, because you are being called towards a new path potentially with this full moon on Pluto. So it's important not to live in the past. Again, Cancer Sun, continue to build the future and be open to the new visions of the future that you are being called to move towards. And the full moon is also trining Mars and Uranus. As I mentioned, these two got together earlier in the week for a conjunction, a very explosive conjunction at that, let me just say. And now, by the time of the full moon, Mars will have entered Gemini. Uranus is still in Taurus because Uranus moves slower. But nevertheless, this full moon trines both of these placements that just had this fiery eruption earlier in the week. And this is a reminder that yes, there may be things that are out of control. That's the energy of Pluto, right? I want it to be this, but it is crumbling. Like, Pluto energy makes it clear around what is crumbling, whether that's a certain ambition that we had, a certain relationship that we had, a certain even ideal that we had for success. There's something that's crumbling and we're not deluding ourselves. We're facing it. There's an urgency around facing it. And while Pluto energy is making it clear around, no matter how much you wanted this vision of success or you wanted this particular thing to work out, it's just not. It's just not. And how can we gracefully transition? How can we not cling, right? And be dragged? Like, it's really asking us to let go and to know that while there are some things in our life that are out of control, there are other things that are in our control. And with Mars Uranus, it's empowering yourself. Ultimately, Pluto's around power. It's empowering yourself to find those new strategies around where you are rebelling, potentially with Mars and Uranus, where it is that you are taking action to improve your situation, or where it is that you are choosing to boldly march into your future. Take it back to my early analogy, where you are having the courage to march into the dark cave. And so with Mars Uranus, it's knowing that as out of control as things can feel, and again, it could be emotions, it could be things that you've repressed, as out of control as these things can feel, you do have agency over certain parts of the situation. Maybe for some, that agency is around walking away, around this relationship is on fire, and for the sake of my pretty lungs, I need to go. Or maybe that agency is around, this job is no longer serving me. I'm going to take the agency in order to put energy towards a new career path. Maybe that agency is around, this is a repressed theme of my own psyche that's come up. I'm going to take action in order to fix this situation. So I show up in new ways. There can be this acknowledgement around a lot in our life feels out of control right now, but there are certain things that are in our control. So it does ask you to reach for and grab for those things. It's easy with Pluto energy to freak out, to cling to what was because we're fearful of what will be, to almost like feel like we want to give up on life. But with the trine to Mars and Uranus, it's remembering where it is that you do have power over the situation. It's remembering to empower yourself in order to find that way through. Because the only way out of this full moon and ultimately this Pluto energy is through. And with Mars Uranus, you might need to get a little crafty. You might need to get a little inventive and going into the dark cave around, okay, can I light something to light the way? Do I need to go over it? Like, you might need to get a little inventive and crafty, very Uranian with it. But there is a way. Like with Mars, it's not forgetting the power that you have. We don't have control over everything, but this full moon on Pluto is illuminating that you are a powerful person. Do not forget that. Do not let those who are in power, these structures, these societal expectations, disconnect you from the power, the sovereignty that exists within you. It's very important that you keep that in mind when it comes to this full moon, and that you choose to march forward courageously is truly the ask. We will gain a lot more information around the particular story that is coming alive for you this full moon in our sign by sign analysis. So let's go ahead and take it to how you can find where the Capricorn full moon July 21st, 2024 lands in with your chart. So as we transition into individual horoscopes, I do want to make it clear that not all of us will be feeling this full moon as an exclamation point. Yes, it's getting to these bigger stories that have been playing out, but not all of us have been in this massive overhaul of self, okay, ongoing since 2008. And not all of us will feel this kind of like tower moment or this acknowledgement around what needs to change as intensely and as profoundly as those who have placements that I will list now. So this full moon in Capricorn, July 21st, will be the most influential for those who have a personal planet or angle. That is your sun, your moon, your Mercury, your Venus, your Mars, or your ascendant, your IC, your descendant, your MC, located between either late cardinal signs, so we will say from 24 to 29 degrees, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, or you have very early fixed degrees, so 0 to 4, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius. Again, personal placements and angles. If you have outer planets, that will be significant, but more so to a generational big picture level, not necessarily as individual. And so if you have late cardinal personal placements or early fixed personal placements, this full moon can be more pivotal for you. Now, we all have a story, but those are the main characters of the story. Those are the protagonists of the story. And I do just want to say that if you have the late cardinal degrees, you're having the grand finale of the transformation that has been ongoing. If you have early fixed degrees, you are getting previews and foreshadows for the transformation of what you're stepping into. Now, if you have placements at 0 or 1 degrees of those early fixed placements, you've already had a Pluto transit, so you're already working with Pluto deeply, but you're definitely getting more clues around the next stage of your own evolution that you're stepping into. Now, even if you have none of those, let's talk about where you can figure out where exactly this full moon is aligning for you, and thus the life arenas is that you're being asked to transform, where you are finding deep empowerment. So to do this, there are two options. The first, if you are newer to astrology, or you utilize whole sign house system, what you'll do is you will find your rising sign in the drop down menu and you will advance to that timestamp. That is your reading. That is your Plutonian work. Now, if you use Placidus house system, I do as well. It is a little bit trickier to find where exactly within your chart it lands, so I will be walking you through it with a visual demonstration on screen. So you'll want to input your birth information to astro.com. You will get a circle chart like this. From here, you'll want to find the Capricorn territory of your chart. I am circling the Capricorn glyph, and from line to line, this is the Capricorn territory of your chart. When you follow towards the inner ring, you'll see little numbers. And so, for example, in Miss Inner Planet Janet here, we see that Capricorn glyph extends from the second house to the third house. So you're welcome to listen to both second house and third house readings. I would actually advise listening to every house that you have Capricorn located within, as that will get to the overall story of Pluto and Capricorn since 2008. However, to find where exactly this full moon lands, you'll want to go to where Capricorn ends, where Aquarius begins. So I'm circling the Aquarius glyph right here. So 29 degrees Capricorn is the last degree of Capricorn. So right at the precipice where it's almost Aquarius, this is where this full moon lands. And you can follow to the inner ring to see which house that lights up within your chart. Advance to that house and that will be your Capricorn full moon reading. Now let's say you're like, Haley Comet, it looks like it could be the second house or the third house. Like you're not sure where exactly that 29 degree would land. Astro.com does provide an option to figure out where exactly the house begins in Placidus house system. To find this, you'll want to hit PDF additional charts, and on the right hand side it'll give you a table where every house begins. And they do note AC as the beginning of the first house, IC as beginning of the fourth house, DC as beginning of the seventh house, and MC beginning of the 10th house, just for your awareness. But what you'll find is essentially the houses that you're stuck between, let's say second and third. Here we see that the third house begins at 27 degrees Capricorn. So if the third house begins at 27 degrees Capricorn and this full moon lands at 29 degrees Capricorn, we know for sure it's in the third house. So Miss Interplanet Janet would advance to that reading. So now that we have figured out which exact readings you should listen to dial into your particular situation, let's go ahead and advance to our sign by sign analysis. If the Capricorn full moon lands within the first house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may potentially be a Capricorn rising. You may just have 29 degrees Capricorn located within the first house. Either way, you are truly on this precipice around who you've been before and who it is that you are evolving into, and the value shifts that the new iteration of yourself will entail. So Pluto is at the 29th degree of Capricorn. So it does feel like it's at the precipice. It's literally at the final degree, kind of peering over to the upcoming work or the upcoming transformation that Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius is hinting and foreshadowing at. But let's firstly talk about the story of reinvention and excavation of authentic self that you've been undergoing since 2008, though that story would have been the most punctuated within your life during the time that Pluto aligned with your ascendant, or when Pluto was at the same degree as your Capricorn ascendant, if you are a Capricorn ascendant. And what Pluto has done is it's done this demolition in the sector of identity, where you have been asked to tear down any veneer that is false and not true to yourself. You've been asked to tear down in regards to your identity. You've been asked to excavate what within you truly feels like you, because that's one thing about Pluto, it's not superficial. And so for some of you, you could have found during this time, you have had to fundamentally rip away everything within your life that was constructed for other people's viewing, or for other people's validations, or for other people's expectations, or for other people's visions of success. When Pluto goes through the ascendant, you start to look at how much is truly me and how much of this identity was crafted in a response to what other people wanted me to be, to what society wanted me to be. And it really is that energy around cancel, around wanting to go deep in order to excavate what is truly you. And with the energy of Pluto transiting here, there could have been an energy around really having to do a transformation around, who am I? How do I identify? What do I want out of this world? For some, I see that you could have found your identity around what you did. You could have found your value around what you contributed to a very external public level. This doesn't always show up around career. Ultimately, the energy of Capricorn is just around wanting to do the best with the resources that we have available. So you could have built your identity around needing to achieve, or needing to be at a certain societal status, or needing to be the best mom, or like whatever you identified with. And with the energy of Pluto, it's not that all of those titles are being stripped away, but you're really being asked to dig deep around, how have I tried to hide my authentic self around my achievements? And look, I'm so great at this, and I have my stuff together here. And with Pluto energy, it's really going deep and like asking yourself, what has trying to uphold this certain reputation, what has that taken from me? Has that taken away my ability to try something new? Because I'm so fearful of failing that I don't allow myself to be in the pathway of new things? Have I denied my authentic desires of what I genuinely want to contribute to society because I want to be seen in a certain way? Have I felt the pressure of maintaining certain appearances, even though underneath the surface I know the situation I'm in isn't aligned for me, because I fear what other people would say about me? There can be an energy with Pluto transiting here around really wanting to dig deep to get to the core of the matter, and really within the first house, get to the core of who it is that you are and who it is that you want to be moving forward. Outside of identity, first house is body. So some of you could have been through an immense journey of body transformation. Some of you could have a journey around really wanting to understand the inner workings of your body. You could have been on a health journey. For some of you, it could have been quite disillusioning kind of excavating and getting deep and getting to the truth away from what's been sold to us around what health looks like or what maintaining a healthy body looks like with the energy of Pluto. Sometimes we have to go deep and realize, okay, much of what's been told to me is healthy is a lie, and I need to kind of find my own solutions here. It could potentially be the story for some. And when it comes to the journey that you are stepping into, this is indicated by this full moon's alignment to Pluto. Now, Pluto will, if it has not already, enter your second house. And this is a sector of values. That's why I was saying there could be a transformation around what it is that you value. There can be certain societal expectations that you realize you're no longer aligned with. There can be certain transformation around your income, around how it is that you make your income potentially. There can be certain transformation around your possessions, wanting to sell things that just don't feel true to you. There's something coming through where you're really wanting to cut through the fluff. You're really wanting to get to the core of what you want your life to be around and get away from all of the noise. I feel that some of you might be on this precipice of realization around, I've been working so hard, so much so that it's taken away from my physical health, it's taken away from things that I truly value out of life, and I just want less stuff. I want less noise, I want less tasks, I just want to get to what matters, the heart of the matter. Because Pluto, not to get existential and morbid, but Pluto is the planet of death. And so some of you could have had a metaphoric death in some sort of, killing off the prior self, right? And rebirthing yourself. And some of you could have had to come up close and personal with a loss of some sort that has sharpened into focus what matters. Like, there is nothing more sobering than loss within this experience. It has this ability to just snap into awareness what really matters in life. I wish that wasn't one of the only things in life that really gets our attention that way, but it does. It really gets at, wow, my time on this planet is limited. Let me build towards what it is that I really want and what I really value within this experience. And even if it wasn't career shifts and showing up within your external reality, some of you are just different. You have been doing this work around evolving yourself, transforming yourself, and stepping into your power. A lot of you have had to go through the fire around releasing things that do not serve, releasing expectations that no longer feel true to you, releasing ambitions that no longer feel true to you, releasing identities, roles that you felt like you've had to play that are no longer true to you. And what you're coming out of this time holding is your power and your resilience. You could have really been brought to your knees in multiple parts of this transit with Pluto in the first house. There could have been certain events that transpired that made you feel out of control of your own life, that brought you to your knees. Like, some of you could have had certain experiences where it's like, I did all the right things and still this happened. And some of you could have had certain awakenings or certain awarenesses around the darker underbelly of this human experience. And if you are part of the population who underwent that with Pluto in your first house, it's important with this full moon to be proud of the strength that got you through, and to keep in mind that you got yourself through that. You kept going. You kept your eye on the prize and continued to move through the fire. Because a lot of times when we do have Pluto in an angular house, we are doing a lot of shadow work. And this is in the sector of self. So it just feels like you've done a lot of shadow work. You've really gotten to the inner recesses of who it is that you are and who it is that you want to be. And you've really aligned yourself to, whether it's the physical habits, some people could have gotten into working out or gotten into health, or just the overall lifestyle habits that allow you to show up powerfully. Some of you have stopped fearing your power during this energy. You have let go of a need to be liked. You've embraced that potentially you could be somebody where other people have not been lukewarm about you, it seems, during this Pluto and Capricorn transit. It feels like people could have been obsessed with you, or people could have, intensely hated you or been very envious of you. Like, you could have had to deal with a lot of people projecting onto you. And with Pluto energy, it's realizing I don't have control of how other people receive me. And so it's an interesting energy around stepping into your power, the least that you are giving other people power to shape your own narrative. It's just this energy around, I'm going to be myself, even if that's polarizing, even if you don't agree with my takes on things, even if just by me showing up and being myself somehow threatens you in some way, I'm going to do me. Because that is me aligning with my most empowered timeline. And so this full moon really shines a spotlight to that work that you have been doing for many of you since 2008. If the Capricorn full moon lands within the second house of your astrological birth chart, this message is for you. You may potentially be a Sagittarius rising. You may just have 29 degrees Capricorn located within the second house. Either way, this message is for you. And this full moon is casting a spotlight to how much your values have transformed since 2008, when Pluto entered Capricorn. You could have found that when this transit began, you were on a certain path, potentially. You were like, this is what's valuable to me within my lifetime. And the very nature of Pluto tends to be kind of this exposing energy. So you could have found as this transit continued, there were certain things that were exposed to you that made you realize the need for transformation of your own value systems. Let's say you always valued a particular industry and you wanted to work at it. You could have found with Pluto and Capricorn, like, oh, the true values of this corporation that I'm working for, like this was my vision, but deep down, these values are not aligned with me. And with the energy of Pluto, you are being asked to allow in that transformation. And this could show up in career, absolutely, but there could be other values that you are questioning or you've been in the journey of questioning while Pluto has been in the second house. And this is the sector of money. And so some of you could have found that it's been challenging since 2008 to feel like you can truly get ahead. Like you could have felt like as soon as you started earning more, then everything got more expensive and then you're back at square one. Or as soon as you were able to have enough money to invest in property, it's like now the interest rates are insane. Like you could have just felt like, am I ever going to like get ahead? It just feels like as soon as I'm making more money, a big expense comes in and knocks me to the ground. And with the energy of Pluto, you have been asked to really tap into your power amidst these transformations, amidst what could have been taken from you. I mean, some of you could have had certain possessions taken away from you. You could have had certain income streams taken away from you. You could have even had power struggles around money. And with the energy of Pluto in the second house, it is asking you to revisit and to be proud of the financial resilience that you've had to excavate for many of you, as well as how it is that you have transformed. Some of you could have transformed how you made money, and some of you could have transformed your relationship to money to a psychological level. Pluto energy can sometimes be this like kind of fight for survival energy, which some of you could have absolutely been feeling since 2008 with this here. But it also can represent where it is that we are fighting for survival when our physical material world doesn't require that any longer. Like for some of you could have gained awareness around how you're still in fight or flight from a time in your life where you could have been in poverty or not had enough. And even if there are more resources, still not feeling safe, still not feeling like it's safe for you to throw away the moldy bread because you're like, what if I need it? Like sometimes Pluto can bring this kind of clingy energy. And it absolutely makes sense, especially if you've known periods of lack, why that would be your instinct. But with the energy of Pluto, it is asking you to evolve potentially your psychology around money. For some of you, you could have found that you experienced extremes around money during this time. So maybe it wasn't necessarily lack. Maybe you made a lot of money during this time. Maybe you started tapping into your power around making money. Maybe with the energy of Pluto, you really mastered your psyche in order to empower new opportunities around ways to make money, ways to exert your mastery in order to command more income. Could have also been a possibility here. And for some of you, this journey of transformation could have been around releasing stuff. Like some of you could have found that during this transit, and this gets to the value story, you've experienced a shift around what it is that you value enough to spend your money on. Like some of you could have just found like it's just too much stuff, or my lifestyle has inflated to this level that I don't even value this anymore. Like I don't need a chef. Like I like making my own meals, but this has been my new normal. So I've been in this like addictive loop of needing to make more and more money in order to keep up. For some of you, Pluto energy could have been like, wait, stop. Let me get in alignment with my values deep down and cut through the fluff, cut through anything superficial around what success has been sold to me as materialism and boats and nice things. Like for some of you, you've had certain awakenings where it's like, that stuff does not matter to me. Why am I working so hard to impress people I don't like? And with the energy of Pluto in second house, some of you could have sold a lot of belongings. Some of you could have had lifestyle changes during this time, whether you started making more money and things got more expensive, or you could find that you downsized. You're like, listen, I don't want to be paying an arm and a leg for all of this. Like, I'm going to live more simply. I'm going to get to the heart of what really matters. And when it comes to this full moon, it aligns with Pluto. Now, for a lot of you, Pluto is still in your second house if you utilize Placidus house system. For others, Pluto may already be in the third house. Either way, it will eventually enter the third house, and this full moon is kind of hinting that story. And with the energy of Pluto in the third house, this is around communication. And so for some of you, there is also a spotlight with this full moon on Pluto around how it is that you are voicing your authentic values, how it is that you are standing up for what it is that you believe in, how you are empowering yourself through your speech. If other people are like, why are you selling this or living this sort of lifestyle? Like, for some of you, you could be really stepping into this new era of your life in which you are really stepping into your power vocally. Now, I know I'm talking to a lot of Sagittarius risings, which is a very honest, blunt energy. So I don't feel like all of you necessarily need help with that. But I do feel like Pluto within the third house, it's a transformation of your mind. It's a transformation of your thinking. It's a transformation of how it is that you communicate. And this full moon could also be spotlighting that. You could also find you're wanting to transform your income, and potentially you want to learn something new. You know, third house has to do with anything digital. So potentially you could be wanting to empower yourself in that way around learning a new digital skill of some sort, tapping into sales, tapping into marketing in order to transform your income, to potentially start making it in a new way, in a way that is more in alignment with your value systems. If the Capricorn full moon, July 21st, lands within the third house of your astrological natal chart, this reading is for you. You may be a Scorpio rising, you may just have 29 degrees Capricorn located in the third house. Either way, this particular full moon is shining a spotlight to this journey of transformation that you've been undergoing in regards to your communication and your mind. I see for some of you, you have been speaking out about things that could have potentially been controversial, or maybe you have more polarizing views on things. And maybe you've been in this cycle of people wanting to keep you silent. And this could have also just been around you standing up for yourself and other people wanting to suppress your voice. But I do see a lot of you have found the power around speaking up. And this could be speaking up for yourself, speaking up for what it is that you want to build, speaking up for your boundaries, speaking up for your ideas potentially. I also see that some of you are gaining awareness on how much fear has been stealing from you. Because this full moon on Pluto is casting a spotlight to our fears. And you have this in the sector of your chart that governs your mental state. And Pluto can be a very obsessive, ruminating energy. And so some of you are gaining awareness just how much your paranoia or assuming the worst, your anxiety has been taking from you. And with this full moon on Pluto, there can be certain elements of your psyche that are coming to the surface around how it is that you mentally talk to yourself. Again, there's a spotlight on communication, either finding the power in you using your voice or potentially seeking to empower yourself from the inside out, and maybe even contemplating how your fears have been holding you back from learning new things or just being able to be open to life. You could have had this major transformation over your mental state during this time while Pluto's been in your third house. Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008. So for some of you, it could have started then, but for others of you who use Placidus house system, it would have started when Pluto entered your third house. But there is this energy around wanting to empower yourself from the inside out. So some of you may be feeling inclined to want to speak up about things that are important to you. Some of you can be finding the power within your voice. Some of you can find that you are using this potentially obsessive energy of Pluto and wanting to use it in a powerful way. That's what I always say about Pluto. It's a destroyer, it's a creator. So when we have Pluto in the third house, your mind could destroy you from the inside out via your fears and your paranoias, or it can create new things. You could have gotten obsessed into certain subjects while Pluto's been in your third house that have helped you understand your psyche. There could have been certain topics that you got into, certain skill sets that you took on, that you honed this obsessive tunnel vision energy of Pluto for good in order to tune into. And third house governs short-term journeys. It governs neighbors. It governs siblings. And for some of you, there can be a spotlight on power struggles that's been building there. And with this full moon at the 29th degree, an ongoing tension could reach a boiling point with this full moon. And it's important to know that though this full moon is at 29 degrees Capricorn, it aligns with Pluto, who is at 0 degrees Aquarius. So they're close in proximity within the sky, but they're straddling two different signs. And there could be a tearing down around an old way of communicating, or maybe even suppressing your voice, not speaking up, could be something that you are tearing down. There could be certain secrets or news that is told to you that tears down an idea that you had around something within your life. Like I said about Pluto, once you know something, you can't go back. And for some of you, whether it's coming from inside of your mind, an aha, an epiphany, a new idea, or it's being told to you, there's some information that's coming into your sphere that is going to ultimately transform you. And with Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius, there could be themes around this full moon around spotlighting where your transformation will take you next. This transit will go until 2044. So it is not a concentrated energy, it's a very expanded energy. And for you, this may be a transformation around your home. It can indicate a transformation around your family, around your dynamics in family. It can represent a transformation of your emotional state. You'll want to check out the Pluto in Aquarius All Signs video to get more information on that. It'll be linked below. But you may also find there's also potentially a spotlight on that upcoming journey. And with the energy of Pluto in Aquarius, empowering new ways of interacting with family, even communicating with family potentially, new ways of speaking your mind, new ways of seeing the world. I just see this energy with Pluto in the third. There could just be an old way of viewing the world that is being rebuilt during this time. There can be certain themes, whether it's a goal or an idea within your head that you've always held, and with the energy of Pluto, certain things have been exposed or revealed to you where you cannot go backwards. You cannot unknow this information that came out. Maybe you were building towards a certain industry and then the truth was exposed and you're like, okay, well, they're corrupt like everything else. Maybe you had a certain idea of what people were like, and then you had to get acquainted with the darker underbelly of human nature, and now you are aware of these psychological themes. While some of the information that can be coming out around this time, and that has come out while you've been undergoing this transit, can be a little dark. It's Pluto. It can expose corruption. It can expose the darker underbelly of this experience, but you are wiser for it with the energy of Pluto in the third house. There has been certain information that's been exposed to you that is making you a more shrewd and strategic person. There could have been certain ways that you view the world around assuming the best of people, thinking that everybody has good hearts, and then you meet, a sociopath or something of that nature, and you realize, okay, that's not the case. And while that is a more dark or potentially depressing way to view the world, knowing that some people do enjoy inflicting harm on others, it makes you more strategic. It makes you more aware. And with Pluto in the third house, I just see that there's certain information that's been revealed to you that has made you more strategic. Now, some of you could have gotten more into psychology, you could have gotten more into spiritual topics, or something that helped you kind of get acquainted with the underbelly of this experience, the dimensions of life that we don't see, but that can deeply empower us. You could have gotten more into studying the art of power. You could have gotten more into studying psychology, studying how the brain works, trying to understand how your brain works, wanting to empower yourself away from these fears, away from these paranoias that could have held you back. And it's important to know that information, while some of it can make us jaded, it does make you a more intelligent, true, strategic person as you move forward. And this full moon could be shining a spotlight to that. If the Capricorn full moon lands within the 4th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may be a Libra ascendant. You may just have 29 degrees Capricorn located within the 4th house. Either way, this is your reading. This full moon is shining a spotlight to this ongoing journey of transformation and power struggles that has been playing out within a very sacred territory of your chart. This arena of your chart has to deal with home, family, and emotional state. I always think of the chart as a tree, like the 10th house being the leaves that we see visually, because 10th house is around career, public persona. And the 4th house, where this full moon is landing in for you, around the root network, what's beneath the surface, our familial roots, right? As well as where it is that we get our nourishment from. And what I can say with Pluto in the 4th house, it may have been challenging for you, potentially since 2008, to create an energy of stability. And that could have shown up within your emotions, that could have shown up within your family, that could have shown up within your home, but you could have felt like it has been a journey of just power struggles. It could have even felt like you had to fight for your own survival. You could have felt emotionally very intense, like you constantly had to rebuild, constantly had to reinvent yourself. Your family could have been undergoing some traumatizing things. It could have been hard for you to nourish your roots, essentially, or feel a certain element of stability, of groundedness around I am safe. And for many of you, you are at the end of this transit. Pluto is just about to enter your 5th house, which does lessen the intensity as it'll no longer be in an angular house of the birth chart. And when Pluto is in an angular house, its influence is a little bit more intensified. And this full moon could cast a spotlight on some power struggles that have been brewing within your family for a long time, potentially. Things could reach a head of certain resentments that have been brewing, or certain ways that you feel like you've been taken advantage of by family, or even if it doesn't have to deal with literal conflicts with your family, there can be a spotlight on how your family impacted your psyche. And that could reach ahead around seeing the patterns around how it was that you were brought up, whether that was in your home of upbringing or even throughout generational cycles, and seeing how that has impacted your attachment style, how that has impacted your relationships, how that has impacted your own sense of safety within this world. And this full moon on Pluto could be a spotlight around where it is that you are wanting to transform and evolve beyond certain generational patterns. Some of you could find during this time that with this power struggle reaching ahead, some of you could be going no contact with a family member. You could be walking away from a property that you could have really wanted to make home but just was not meant to be. There could be something emotionally that reaches a peak where you realize that there's no option but to surrender, to let go, to evolve. And on that note of evolution, I see a lot of you have really been transforming emotionally. Like you could find that now being at the precipice of the end of Pluto and Capricorn, which is a story that wraps up officially in 2024, you can find the ways that you show up for yourself emotionally has drastically shifted. Because I'm speaking to a lot of Libra risings, and Libra is an energy that wants to keep the peace. They want to people please. And if you felt like you've had to portray a certain role for your family, there's an energy with this full moon on Pluto where all of that energy of what you've suppressed and trying to be the role and play the peacekeeper and keep everybody happy, it's like that has been building. It goes somewhere. When we just slap a smile on and pretend like everything's okay, it's not that it disappears, that it evaporates into the ethers. It's been building within you. And if you haven't felt like you've been able to stand up to yourself or empower yourself around family members, this full moon may be a time in which those tensions reach a head. And with the energy of Pluto needing to evolve past the role that you've been designated to play within your family unit. For some of you, this story doesn't have to deal with family. It could also just be how you are evolving to regulate and support yourself emotionally in new ways. Maybe you're allowing yourself to have emotions, because if you have Capricorn here, this signifies that your 4th house in part is ruled by Saturn, so you can sometimes have a tendency to restrict your emotions, whether it's in that people-pleasing energy that I was talking about, or because you had to moderate other people's emotions, so you had to suppress your own. And with this energy of the full moon on Pluto, there can be extreme emotions that you are feeling come to the surface. Like I said, they go somewhere. And the energy of Pluto kind of exposes the darker underbelly. And so you can find that memories are coming back, or emotions that you thought you evolved beyond but you just suppressed are coming to the surface. And when it comes to Pluto, it is around transformation. So for some of you, you found new ways to be present for your emotions, to not abandon yourself when you are uncomfortable, when you are sad, when you are in need of comfort. You're allowing yourself to have these extremes. You're not judging them, you're not suppressing them, you're not making other people's emotions more important than your own. Some of you could have gotten more into therapy. You could have gotten more into strategies in order to emotionally regulate these more sacred territories of your chart and of your life. And with this energy within the 4th house, I do see that a lot of you have really gone deep to ask yourself, what is it that is truly going to make me happy? What visions of success do I want to build? Because an overall theme with the energy of Capricorn at the 29th degree is getting to the top of the ladder and realizing it was placed to the wrong wall. Because this full moon is in your 4th house. So there could be a spotlight around what is genuinely going to fill me up? What is genuinely going to make me happy? And you may find that you did all the right things. You did what was expected of you. Maybe you even did what your family wanted you to do, or what your family needed you to be. And there's just this awareness around, I didn't achieve my way out of these emotions, or I did all this and I'm still not happy. I'm still not emotionally and intrinsically satisfied with what I've contributed to the outer world. And potentially that could be something that you are transforming during this time, or at least with this full moon here, gaining awareness around it's something that you are feeling inclined to transform. Some of you could be moving. Some of you could be evolving. Some of you could be moving. Some of you could have a huge family change of some sort coming alive here. And some of you, this will not be everyone, so please do not have any fear, but some of you may find that you are processing grief during this time, and it might be old grief. Maybe there was a loss that you experienced, but because of what you needed to do for everybody else and needing to be the rock for everybody else, you didn't allow yourself to process it or really feel it. And this full moon could be really asking you to feel those emotions and to potentially reach out for the support in order to cope with this transition within your life potentially. And so with this full moon, a lot of you are gaining awareness around something in your life that needs to change, something in your life that needs to evolve. And that could be a role that you've played within family, that could be a way that you've been emotionally coping, that could be your physical home, that could be your city of residence, that could be certain generational patterns. There is this awareness around we cannot keep doing things as we've been doing them. And again, this is a very sacred territory of your chart, and you could feel like you're doing all the right things out in the world, but like inwardly, you could just feel like you are crumbling and you are falling apart. And I know I'm talking to a lot of Libra rising, so there could be an energy of wanting to keep it all pretty and keep it all together and keep it all balanced. But I think ultimately this full moon is asking you to feel what is coming up to the surface, allow your emotions to be messy and to be intense, and allowing yourself that space to not feel like it has to be restricted or feel like other people's emotions are more important than your own. And this is not going to be volatile for every single person I'm talking to. Some of you can just gain awareness on how you have empowered your emotions, how you have found your power amidst your family, how you have set boundaries, how you have found the power in building your own home, right? And creating that sanctuary, that stability that you've been looking for. Like some of you could have a spotlight around these themes as well. If the Capricorn full moon on July 21st lands within the 5th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may be a Virgo rising, you may just have 29 degrees Capricorn located within the 5th house. But either way, the spotlight for you with this lunation is around your creativity, your sense of play, your children, and your inner child. So let's break it down. Firstly, I see that some of you have been on this journey around evolving your sense of fun. As you look back at the Pluto and Capricorn transit, as we're all being asked to do with this full moon, you may find that there has been a renovation around what it is that you consider as fun. Maybe you went into this transit loving to party, and with the energy of Pluto in the 5th house, your sense of fun and hobbies could have evolved quite a bit. And sometimes that shows up in a little bit of an existential way, where sometimes when our sense of fun evolves, we're in this in-between around, I no longer resonate with my old party friends or what I used to consider as fun, and I'm not exactly sure what I'm evolving into. Sometimes Pluto energy can be this in-between where it feels like the way that we used to do things, and for you, the way you used to approach creativity, fun, even dating, is crumbling. And a lot of you may not be totally aware what is sharpening into focus within its place. But ultimately, this full moon is a trust fall. It is an ask to surrender. It is an ask to evolve, to let go of what no longer resonates in terms of what it is that you enjoy. And I feel for some of you, because whether you're a Virgo rising or not, you have at least part of Capricorn in your 5th house. And Capricorn is around work and prestige, and 5th house is around play. And so for some of you, you may be listening to this and you're like, Haley, Comet, I don't do anything for fun. My life is around productivity and my career. And maybe you do love what it is that you do. But I feel for some of you, there is this awareness around how you've never allowed yourself nor your inner child the ability to feel truly carefree, or to really let your hair down, or to really allow in your wildness or your fun. Maybe some of you didn't even have the option to do that. Whether it was standards you put on yourself to overachieve, or just expectations that were put on you that suffocated your inner child, where you took things very seriously. And the energy of Pluto here can be acknowledging the psyche of your inner child, who felt like you needed to achieve in order to deserve love, who felt like if you are creative, you had to be the absolute best in order for it to be valuable. There feels to be an acknowledgement around how it was always about the end result and not about enjoying the process of creating. It was about being the best, or you had to achieve, or you had to build towards the next moment. And there's an energy around potentially having an existential crisis around what makes me happy? What do I enjoy doing? And how can I honor that carefree inner child who, for many of you, had to grow up too soon or took life too seriously too soon? How can I reclaim that sense of lightheartedness, that sense of fun within my world? And for those who are creative, you could have found you've gone through this immense evolution within your creativity during the Pluto and Capricorn story. Some of you could have approached very dark or extreme or polarizing topics within your art. Some of you could find that your medium transformed, even your ways of creating could have transformed during this time. And if you've been clinging to an old way of creating or trying to keep things safe, there can be an acknowledgement with this full moon on Pluto, this need to go deep in regards to what it is that you create. Pluto is anything but superficial. And it really wants to cut to the core when it comes to how it is that you create and what it is that you choose to share. And even if you don't work in singing or art, if you're an entrepreneur, like with full moon on Pluto, there can be an acknowledgement around new creative visions that are beginning to take form and wanting it to be true to you. Some of you have been questioning whether or not to have children. And this full moon, you can reach this boiling point. And for some of you, there could even be this now or never energy. I'm not saying all of you are going to conceive, okay? But there can be this spotlight around this need to decide. And again, Pluto will revisit this sector this fall. So I don't want you to feel like everybody needs to figure it out July 21st, 2024. But this full moon could spotlight this urgency that you have around children and this need to want to evolve your life in that direction. Or maybe for some of you, deciding that that's not the path that you want to go down and having clarity around that decision. If you do have children, this full moon could indicate some power struggles brewing, maybe not necessarily with them, but maybe around children, people trying to limit your access to them or something of that nature. There can also be a spotlight on your dating life with this full moon. And for some of you, you may find that once Pluto leaves this sector, you are able to find a lot more stability when it comes to your experiences in romance. And 5th house is dating, romance. Like 7th house is where we go into long-term partnerships. But for some of you, you've had some really intense experiences within dating during this time. You could have been exposed to the darker underbelly of human nature through your dalliances. There could have been even certain awarenesses around your psychology, your attachment style, anything of that nature that have sharpened into focus because of the people that you have dated. There could even be awarenesses around where it is that you've been trying to secure validation through dating or receiving romantic attention, potentially. And with this full moon on Pluto, I will say, with Pluto leaving the 5th house, you may find that you're able to find a lot more stability within your dating life. If you found that it's been a lot of highs and lows and really intense figures that have come into your dating sphere, you should find that with Pluto leaving this sector, it's a little bit more calm. Hopefully you're able to take all of that data and take it with you. But you could find that what it is that you're looking for in dating now has evolved quite a bit due to who it is that you have interacted with and what it is that you've learned and how it is that you've transformed through context of interacting with these individuals. And so ultimately, what I can tell you is that there are some illuminations brewing around your own creativity, your own sense of fun, your own inner child, your own children, your own passion projects that you want to put out there, and your own dating and romantic life. And you may find how it is that you approach these sectors have been ultimately changed because of Pluto's influence. So being able to take how your art has evolved, how your creativity has evolved, how your preferences in dating have evolved, how your own relationship to your inner child has evolved, and to look towards the next chapter of your journey, which, since this full moon aligns with Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius, if it has not already, Pluto will eventually enter your 6th house, which has to do with your day-to-day, which has to deal with your work, which has to deal with your health. And so this full moon can also spotlight those themes potentially as well. If the Capricorn full moon, July 21st, lands within the 6th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may be a Leo rising, you may just have 29 degrees Capricorn in the 6th house. Either way, the emphasis for you for this full moon is truly on your health, your routines, and your day-to-day. So firstly, some of you have been in the midst of a major health transformation. Some of you have renovated, like I'm talking total change, your diet. You have changed your daily routine. You have changed how it is that you approach health since Pluto has been in your 6th house. For some of you, that journey could have started in 2008. And with this full moon on Pluto, there can be a crystallization of those efforts that you've put in. If you have been looking for answers, this full moon could even expose certain information that makes it clear how you can transform or evolve your health. Some of you could be dealing with a lot of health anxiety. Pluto can spotlight themes of fears and paranoias, and that could also be coming to the surface. Because even if our diet of what we're physically eating is pristine and we're eating all the nutrients, if we are feeding ourselves toxic rhetoric around feeling guilty for what it is that we are eating, or digesting a lot of fear or anxiety around what could potentially be happening within our body, like that's also not nutritious as well. And some of you might have this aha moment where yes, certain health information could be revealed, but also acknowledging your own psyche around health, around well-being. And if you have not been on a health journey, this full moon may be in spotlight around a necessity to do so. No fear at all, but Pluto energy can require a transformation. So some of you can find, I'm tired of not feeling well. Let me finally figure out what I'm allergic to. Let me finally take shifts within my day-to-day to moderate my symptoms. Like, let me dig deep and do my own research in order to figure out what is happening here. And if you've been in this transformation journey, some of you could just be looking back at that particular evolution and just seeing how far you've come. Just remembering the days in which you used to feel swollen and the days that used to feel so low energy, and honoring how you have literally transformed how you feel day to day, moment to moment. Now, the focus will not be on health for every single Leo rising. For others of you, there may be simmering tensions that have been building with coworkers, within your workplace, that could potentially reach a head around the time of the full moon. There can be a spotlight around, I've got to get a new job. Like, there could just be an awareness around being at the end of your rope with a certain workplace. And this could be a power struggle with a coworker. This could be something within the workplace that does feel toxic, that's draining a lot of energy. But a lot of you are gaining awareness with this full moon around something's got to change. And for some of you, it can just be the way that you go about your work. Maybe you've been really obsessive, you've been really perfectionistic, you've been obsessed with getting certain results at the expense of other arenas of your life, your health, your relationship, something of that nature. And this full moon on Pluto could really be spotlighting something's got to change. You know, I'm talking to a lot of Leo risings, and one thing about fixed energy is that they are stubborn. And so you can find that your insistence to do things your way, the hard way, is creating a lot of extra work on yourself. And there can be an acknowledgement around, I've got to find a new way. This current schedule is not sustainable. I've got to transform. And some of you could even be contemplating a certain work shift of some sort, changing industries dramatically, okay? Pluto's quite dramatic. Some of you may have already done that, and this full moon can be a spotlight on that, a crystallization of you've come so far. Your day-to-day reality has utterly transformed during this time. And this full moon does align with Pluto, who's at 0 degrees Aquarius. And if it is not already there, Pluto will eventually enter your 7th house. So your relationships will go through an overhaul. It could be a deepening, it could be a transforming, it could be an evolving, it could be a releasing. You'll want to check out the Pluto in Aquarius video, as well as the Leo 2024 forecast if you want to get more information on that. But just knowing that this full moon could also bring up those simmering tensions as well as foreshadow where the next stage of your evolution will come into focus. Because with Pluto leaving your 6th house, if you have found that it's been really hard to get ahead at work, if you found that it's been constant power struggles and drama in the workplace, if you feel like it's been so hard to just feel stable and good within your physical body, you feel like you've had all these power struggles around health, around trying to get doctors to believe you, you've had to have all of these dramatic moments within your health journey, I will say, once Pluto leaves this sector, you should find a lot more stability within this sector. But please take some time during this full moon to acknowledge your resilience, your strength throughout this time. If the Capricorn full moon on July 21st lands within the 7th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may be a Cancer ascendant, you may just have 29 degrees Capricorn located within the 7th house. Either way, you are reaching this boiling point as it relates to your relationships. You have been going through some major beginnings and endings as it relates to your connections. And there can be a pivotal moment brewing in the latter half of 2024, accentuated by this full moon, around needing to decide whether you are going to evolve within your relationship or if you are going to walk away. You know, the energy of Pluto can be around destruction and implosion and release. And don't worry, not everyone is going through a breakup during this time, but this full moon will cast a spotlight on what within your relationship needs to be transformed, needs to be evolved beyond for the two of you to continue your connection. And if it's possible to continue your connection. Because the energy of Pluto, there could be certain things that have been brewing, that have been underneath the surface that this full moon will spotlight around. I thought I was going to be able to get over that particular betrayal, or I thought I was going to be able to get past this particular challenging dynamic that we worked beyond. But this full moon on Pluto can really spotlight how you've been holding on to that particular emotion. And there could be an urgent need to release. So some of you could have like a power struggle or even an argument or a conflict, and there's a need to ultimately let it go. to release, surrender. This is the final culmination point. And again, this journey will continue to sharpen into focus later on this year, but this full moon on Pluto can really bring this aha moment within your own awareness. Keep in mind, I'm talking to a lot of Cancer risings. You guys are ruled by the moon. So this is your ruling luminary aligned with Pluto, casting a spotlight around, I thought I could move past this. I thought I could suppress it, but I cannot. And we need to get beyond this. I don't want to fight about this in 2 years' time. I don't want these same emotions to come up. We need to evolve beyond this. We need to either talk about it or find a way to transform our connection. Some of you, and this will be a very small population, so I do not want you to fret, but some of you could acknowledge this relationship is done. And I can tell myself that these band-aids can fix this burning tower, but at a certain point, it's time to let it go. And some of you could have put a lot of effort into putting those band-aids on the tower of this particular relationship, and this full moon can just spotlight this need to evolve within a new direction, which can be painful. And if you are single, if you are not in a connection, you could have found that within this Pluto and Capricorn journey, it has been very hard to find stability within your connections. You could have had these very powerful, obsessive, intense connections and these dramatic endings. You could have even interacted with the shadow side of humanity, dated narcissists or sociopaths or people who even just triggered the deeper level of your own psyche. And this full moon could be casting a spotlight on your need to grieve those connections. Even if you're no contact, they are not part of your day-to-day, there can be a need to energetically sever that connection, cut that cord, release it, get it out of your energy. If you're still dreaming about the person or you still feel their energy come up, there can be a need to really let it go, like really sever that. If you've been holding out a candle or something of that nature, there could be a need to let it go. And some of you, if you're in a healthy relationship and the prior examples do not relate to your world, you may find that you are confronting certain elements of your own psychology through the context of interacting with your partner. Even if it's a very healthy relationship, you can find your traumas are being triggered or your attachment style is coming to the surface. And this relationship could be kind of forcing you to evolve, to find new ways of how it is that you relate and connect, because this full moon aligns with Pluto, who is at 0 degrees Aquarius, who is already in your 8th house, or it will soon enter. And so a lot of you are in this process of evolution and transformation as it relates to intimacy. And so some of you could find that your own challenges within this world have been keeping your partner at bay or keeping the two of you from evolving together. And this full moon on Pluto could be spotlighting the need to allow in more intimacy into your connection. Maybe some of you are getting couples therapy. Maybe some of you are showing up for your own individual growth for the benefit of the shared connection. Some of you may have certain information come to light that will prompt a change within your relationship, whether it's getting certain news that you guys have to move somewhere or certain information coming out about your partner. There can be something that's been perhaps simmering underneath the surface that reaches a culmination point. And this will show up particularly within your one-to-one. Some of you, if you've been going through a divorce, this full moon on Pluto, it could reach a boiling point in regards to this power struggle. You could feel like you've just been clawing for your own life. You could have even felt, some of you have felt like you've been fighting for your own survival. And if that has been the case, I do see like a final ending of some sort. I mean, it's like full moon, 29th degree, and Pluto will retrograde back into the sector later this fall to never return to the sector again. So some of you could find that you're finally finding some sort of resolution or finally being able to move forward and find more peace. And even if it doesn't have anything to do with a divorce, if it has to do with a contract dispute, if you've been fighting with a business partner over ownership of some sort, if you've been involved in some sort of lawsuit in regards to a contract, that could also be spotlighted with this particular full moon and Pluto retrograding back into Capricorn. And there is a need in 2024 to really be able to walk away, for this to be a final ending, for you to be able to reclaim your peace, get your peace back. And some of you can find that when it comes to what it is that you've been looking for within a partner, that could have evolved dramatically over the time that Pluto's been in Capricorn. For some of you, this journey started in 2008. What it was that you were looking for when it came to long-term partnership in 2008 could differ quite a bit from what it is that you're looking for in partnership in 2024. And with this full moon on Pluto, it could be this acknowledgement around how it is that you are transforming, how you show up within connections, how you are evolving past bad habits, how you are evolving past destructive or chaotic relationships, how you are evolving past finding that these tumultuous ups and downs sort of connections are real love. Like some of you are going to find a lot more stability when it relates to your one-to-one once Pluto officially departs this sector. If the Capricorn full moon on July 21st, 2024 lands within the 8th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may potentially be a Gemini ascendant. You may just have 29 degrees Capricorn in the 8th house. Either way, there is a spotlight within the very intense sectors of life that the 8th house governs. So let's get into it. Firstly, I want to share that this is around shared resources. And some of you could have been in this battle, it truly feels like for some of you, over shared resources, claiming what is rightfully yours, whether it's what's due to you from a business partnership that could have gone south, whether it's what's due to you in child support, in alimony from a divorce. Some of you have had some simmering power struggles in this arena. And the good news is, I guess good news, but what I do see is that with this full moon at this final degree, there could be like a final resolution, like a final ending, being able to walk away, like let the chips fall where they may, and be able to move forward, especially if this has been draining or taking a lot from you. And I'm not saying it's going to wrap up with a nice little bow for everybody on July 21st, but Pluto will move back into the sector for the final time this fall. So you can find that once Pluto departs this sector of your chart for good, you are finally able to genuinely move forward and evolve into the next stage of your life. And some of you can find, if you are still in your marriage, if you're still in your business partnership, you guys could really surf some ups and downs. You could have known some extremes during this time that Pluto's been in Capricorn, you know, making a ton of money and then losing it, or having certain just like ups and downs, power struggles, fighting over other people's money. And I will say with Pluto leaving this sector, you will find some more stability as it relates to your shared resources within your business partnership or within your marriage. Now, let's say you don't have a business partnership and you're not married and you're like, Haley, Comet, where is this coming to surface? Firstly, some of you are really needing to process unresolved grief. And grief is something that never fully goes away. But I do feel for some of you, you've been trying to suppress it. You've just been trying to move forward with life. Maybe you haven't really dug into therapy or other tools in order to support yourself, and you've just been trying to move forward. And there's an energy with this full moon on Pluto around needing to acknowledge certain endings within your world, whether that was an actual loss or whether that was a metaphoric loss, a loss of a prior version of self, a transformation from a certain sector of your life. Some of you are going to find that there's like all of these emotions coming to the surface around, I thought I moved past that. And it's important to allow yourself this space. I'm talking to a lot of Gemini risings, and I know you guys trying to make sense of things. And the thing about these Plutonian themes is that they don't always make sense. And this full moon can spotlight things that you may have thought that you moved on from, but still exist within you energetically in some way. And to allow yourself that space to deeply grieve, whether it was a physical loss or even a loss of a prior self. I see for some of you, like your life could have really transformed. And when we have certain 8th house moments within our life, we can never go back to who we were prior. Like when we suffer a major loss, when we go through something really traumatic, we cannot regress to who it was that we were prior. We are ultimately changed. And so maybe for some of you, you are grieving a prior version of yourself, someone who was a little bit more potentially lighthearted and a little bit more naive. It reminds me of this Andrew Garfield quote and how he was talking about losing his mother and how you are in a more raw, real version of the world once you go through something like that, whether it was a loss or just something traumatizing. You're just in a realer, more raw version of the world. And I will find the actual quote and put it on screen because I'm sure I'm butchering it. But I feel that with this full moon on Pluto, it's both gaining awareness, perhaps some of you being proud of the resilience that you've had to unearth. Like some of you have had to deal with your grief and still raise your kids. Some of you have had to deal with a major loss and still show up for your business. Like some of you had to go on with life as normal, even though life was anything but normal. And I just see that some of you could have this energy around being proud of the strength that it took to get through that, as well as potentially grieving who it was that you were before. And again, there's still elements of who it was that you were before within you, but you are a realer, more raw version of yourself. You're in a more real, raw experience of this world. And we cannot go backwards, we can only go forwards. And Pluto energy makes that clear, it makes it apparent. And if Pluto is not already in your 9th house, it will eventually enter. And so the sector of transformation, evolution that is sharpening into focus, for you, it's going to be around your belief systems. It's going to be around your connection to the divine, potentially your sense of faith. Because 8th house, in a certain way, can be the dark night of the soul. It's these major transformations. It's death, it's loss, it's taxes. Some of you could have had certain tax drama, okay, with Pluto in the 8th house. And I always think of 9th house as the sunrise after the dark night of the soul. After all that we knew about our life is stripped away, there was like a need to find something to believe in. There's like a need to believe in heaven once we've lost someone significant, because we're just like, I can't cope with thinking that this person is just gone. Like I need something to believe in. And that journey can be sharpening into focus with Pluto eventually entering your 9th house. If the Capricorn full moon lands within the 9th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may potentially be a Taurus rising, or you just have 29 degrees Capricorn located within the 9th house. Either way, this reading is for you. So you have been going through a spiritual awakening, let's say that. And for some of you, the journey could have started in 2008 when Pluto entered Capricorn. For others of you, it began when Pluto entered your 9th house. But a lot of you have gone through a complete overhaul of what it is that you believe in. Like some of you could have started this transit being very religious, and then with the energy of Pluto, there could have been certain information that was exposed or certain ahas that you had that were quite disillusioning around, that does not align with my worldview any longer. And sometimes the energy of Pluto can be very existential. So you could have even dabbled in different belief systems around how does it feel to be, atheist or agnostic, or how does it feel to believe in astrology? How does it feel to be nihilistic, that nothing matters? Like sometimes with Pluto energy, we can feel a little jaded where things that we used to believe in no longer resonate. And there is an energy to really go deep to find what aligns for our worldview for who it is that we are now. We are continually evolving, and thus our connection to the divine, our connection to our own faith is evolving as well. And so for some of you, this full moon can spotlight just how much your own spiritual beliefs, your own religious beliefs have evolved. And some of you could have been brought to your knees with certain challenging experiences that forced you, in a sense, to believe in something bigger than yourself, like a certain energy around, I cannot just exist within a world where I think that everything is meaningless and random. That is not conducive for me. Like that makes this world feel much too dark and depressing for me. I must find something else to believe in. I must find something that makes me feel connected to something bigger. Some of you could have been brought to that moment where it's like, I need to believe in something bigger than myself, or I'm just going to give up on life. Hate to be intense, but Pluto energy is kind of intense. And some of you could have gone through that. Now, others of you, it wasn't so intense. It just could have been an energy around you had a spiritual awakening. You started to awaken to certain studies that you dove into. You could have gotten more into astrology. Pluto energy could be a little obsessive. So some of you could have gotten obsessed with astrology, obsessed with numerology, obsessed with religion. You could have really been in the seeking energy. And sometimes Pluto energy can make us obsessed around wanting to dig deep, around really wanting to understand and to cut through the superficial, to really get to the core around what is it that I believe in? And some of you could have found that that journey might have been tumultuous. You could have found that you saw the darker underbelly of spiritual practices, whether it was gurus who use these spiritual principles for their own gain, or even certain dabblings in certain religious institutions where certain information was exposed that made it feel very corrupt. Like, this journey may have not been seamless for you. You could have even found with this obsessive energy of Pluto, some of these topics that you dove into were not necessarily conducive for your mental health. Like, you could have dove into astrology and then felt really paranoid that your life was going to be cursed because of a certain aspect within your chart or something of that nature. And when it comes to ninth house being higher education, some of you could have experienced a certain disillusionment with your experience in university, with your academic goals. You could have excavated the shadow side of certain people who are in academic power, certain professors could have been shady to you in some way, and could have ultimately made you question, why am I studying what it is that I'm studying? Maybe some of you could have even had certain disillusioning experiences around, I got this degree, I was told I would be able to move forward in life, but I'm still out here competing for the jobs that I am before I got this degree. Like, some of you could be feeling that sort of disillusionment. That some of you could have had some very transformative experiences around travel, and that transformation might not have been seamless. You could have had some really intense experiences while traveling, some really powerful experiences while traveling. Some of you could have had certain fears come to the surface around traveling, or having to conquer certain fears around traveling potentially. The journey that is being hinted towards with this full moon's alignment to Pluto, who's at 0 degrees Aquarius, which is either already in your 10th house or will soon enter, dependent on which house system you utilize, you may find that your career goals, what it is that you want to create for yourself as well as for humanity with Pluto and Aquarius, is evolving. And maybe these stories are connected. Maybe your own journey around trying to find what it is that you believe in has led you to what it is that you want to contribute to humanity. That story could also sharpen into focus. If the Capricorn full moon lands within the 10th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may potentially be an Aries rising. You may just have 29 degrees Capricorn located within the 10th house. Either way, this reading is for you. And the emphasis, the boiling point, the moment of surrender that is building the cosmos with this full moon lands in the sector that has to deal with career, public persona, and reputation. And I don't want everyone to feel like this is you walking away from a job or even losing your job, because that is not going to be the story for everyone. That could be the story for some. There could just be an acknowledgement around, I'm at the end of my rope here. You know, I have built a particular career that I no longer resonate with. Like, my transformation is complete here. My growth is stagnating. The longer that I stay here, it's time for me to evolve beyond. And maybe some of you have been resisting that change. Maybe some of you have been feeling this build in the background, but this full moon will make it apparent to you, if it's meant to, where you are being asked to evolve within your career. This could be drastically pivoting industry. This could be walking away from something that you've built if it is no longer aligning with who it is that you are now. For others, there can be a certain power struggle with a boss or with an authority figure that reaches a height during this particular transit. You can find that you have just been clawing for an energy of control over a certain situation. With this full moon on Pluto, some of you may be asked to walk away in order to protect your own sanity in some regards. This won't be a message for everyone, but I feel for some of you, you've been working for a boss who might be very narcissistic or very egotistical, or someone who just drains a lot of energy from you. And this full moon on Pluto could be acknowledging this need to transform. That whatever it is that you are building is not worth your own sanity and your own well-being. And some of you, if you own your own business, there can be this spotlight around where it needs to transform. Some of you could pivot. Maybe it's not even drastically changing industry. Maybe it's changing how it is that you show up. Maybe there's been certain strategies that your business has taken on that no longer align for you, and it's time to shift. Maybe to keep up with where technology is going, where humanity is going, with this full moon aligned with Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius. Some of you are being asked to let go and move into the future or be dragged into the future. So some of you could be asked to pivot, rebrand dramatically, try on new technique, change your reputation in some way. Some of you may have certain information come up about your career that does require you to evolve, that does require you to transform. Now, for others of you, this transformation has already been underway. When you look back at Pluto and Capricorn, and this transit began in 2008, you may find that your career has changed quite a bit. You can find that maybe you've evolved industries, you have built a level of success, you've built a level of visibility. Some of you could have had very extreme highs and lows within career, could have had certain beginnings and endings. You could have had losses and gains. It could have been quite tumultuous as it relates to career. Your reputation could have gone through some attacks. You could have had kind of the evil eye on you, or competitors trying to siphon you, or trying to siphon from you, or spread shady information that damaged your reputation in some regard. And for others of you, I just see there's this energy around having reached a certain level of success and realizing it doesn't feel how you thought that it would. Like there could be an energy around, I thought happiness was waiting for me as soon as I got to this particular position. But now I'm here and now I just want this next position. And there could just be this awareness on this endless loop, that looking for validation and the next level of success and the next accomplishment and the next accomplishment, how it has kept you in this state of always being hungry, being voracious, not able to even enjoy the success that you cultivated because you had a little bit of moritis. It was always the next thing. And for some of you, this won't be for everyone, but for some of you, you've been outsourcing your happiness or your healing, just feeling like, I'll be happy, I'll be satisfied as soon as this happens. I'll take more time to spend with my family as soon as I get this promotion, this promotion, this promotion. And you might have an existential crisis around this full moon, around what was it all for? And that could prompt a transformation in some regard. And if you've already gone through this overhaul in regards to career, some of you could just be with this full moon, just being proud of that strength that it took for you to pivot past something that everybody said you were good at, or to pivot past the linear path, the easier path, and to empower yourself into a new direction. Because some of you, you have found certain elements of your psyche you've had to confront through the nature of your work. Like you've had to move through certain fears of visibility when it comes to your business. You've had to move through certain elements of your psyche through the elements that came alive in running your business or running your career. Your work could have been a certain catalyst for your own psychological evolution in some way. But it also could have revealed where it is that you were seeking to psychologically self-soothe via being seen in a certain way, or being successful, or building the career that your family wanted you to. It can be an energy with this full moon brewing where you're really asking yourself, what is it all for? And some of you with the energy of Pluto could really be asking, with this finite experience of my life, because Pluto's very morbid, okay? You could be asking, what is it that I really want to do with my time? Do I want to be on my final bed that I'll be on, wishing I would have worked harder, or wishing I would have gotten the promotion quicker, or sucked up to my boss more? And how can I pivot in ways where I am truly aligned with what it is that I'm building? Because with this full moon aligned with Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius, Pluto, if it hasn't already, will eventually enter your 11th house. And a lot of you are going to experience a transformation in terms of your long-term goals, your visions for the future. And so some of you are finding that whether you are leaving a certain position around feeling proud of yourself, around this is what I built, but my growth is taking me elsewhere. And some of you could find, I tried so hard within this particular industry, but it's time for me to pivot. It's important to allow in transformation during this time, particularly when it relates to what it is that you want to contribute to the public. If the Capricorn full moon on July 21st lands within the 11th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may potentially be a Pisces ascendant. You may just have 29 degrees Capricorn located within the 11th house. Either way, the emphasis as it relates to this particular full moon is around your hopes and dreams for your own future, for humanity's future, as well as your friendships. I call the 11th house the dreams that we are building and the people we are building it with. And that could have gone through a massive overhaul for you. This transit began in 2008. Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008. You could have found that there's been a lot of beginnings and endings in friendships during that time. You could have had some really dramatic blow-ups with friends. You could have been really betrayed by friendships. You could have seen the darkest underbelly of human nature by people who were meant to be your friends. There could have been some real shady, secretive behavior that's been exposed during this time. And with the energy of Pluto, this could have transformed and evolved your definition of what it is that you require from your friendships. Like, one thing about Pluto is that it definitely awakens us to, yes, a more jaded vision of the world, but a more real vision of the world. And if you had a friend who was an energy vampire, or who lied to you, or who was narcissistic, it does limit your faith in humanity a bit, but it also makes you smart and makes you shrewd and makes you strategic around who it is that you want to trust. Because I'm talking to a lot of Pisces risings, and let's just say it, okay? I'm a Pisces sun. I'm allowed to come for you guys. There can be a tendency to wear rose-colored glasses, and Pluto energy has really exposed how trusting the wrong people within your world has led to some detrimental effects. And for some of you, that information that somebody in your friend group is not a friend, that may be revealed to you with the full moon on July 21st, or potentially with Pluto retrograde back into Capricorn later on this fall. But there could be an aha. There could be an awareness around some sort of secret or some sort of information that comes to light that makes you realize that you need to release a certain friendship. Now, for others of you, there could have been simmering power struggles or simmering conflicts that do reach a head during this time. I don't want to convey that everybody's going to go through a friendship breakup. Some of you could just have this awareness around, our friendship cannot continue going this way. We need to change something. We need to transform how it is that we connect, the standards that we expect within our connection. We cannot continue on in the way that we've been going. And maybe for some of you, you've been suppressing, you've been noticing the shady behavior or feeling weird about it for a while, and finally your intuition could scream at you with this full moon around, we've got to talk about something, or we've got to transform this, right? Maybe you've been suppressing, and the energy of Pluto could be really urgently requiring you to either transform the friendship into a new direction or evolve beyond it, potentially. And for others of you, the story is not around friendship. The story is around your own visions of your future. You could have found what you wanted when this transit began, and your ambitions now have drastically changed. Some of you could have felt like your dreams were ripped away. And again, Pisces ascendants, I know not all of you are Pisces ascendants, but some of you are. You need dreams to sustain you, and the energy of Pluto could have really exposed the darker underbelly of what it is that you wanted. Like, you wanted to be a singer, and then you got into the industry and you realized, oh, there's a lot of piranhas around here wanting to feed off my talent, right? And that dream that you had around, oh, wouldn't it be great to be a singer, with the energy of Pluto, you realize it's not all that it's cracked up to be. It's not to say that it's not a laudable dream. It's not to say to no longer pursue your dreams. But the energy of Pluto, there could have been certain information that was exposed to you that made you realize, I need to be smart here. I need to be strategic here. Or some of you could have found, I no longer want this industry based on what's been exposed. And some of you, it's like what it is that you've been told to want, like the society's dream around the marriage and the picket house and all of that. Some of you can find, like, that's not really what I want for my future. And you could have found that you're evolving beyond that and finding your own vision. Some of you, because this is a house that has to do with humanitarian visions and goals, some of you with the energy of Pluto in 11th house, you've been really awakening to some of the horrible events that are happening within humanity. And some of you are feeling personally called upon in order to help in some way. Some of you, maybe even just your overall worldview has been corrupted a little bit, but in a more real, raw way around really seeing the destruction that is happening around and potentially feeling personally called in order to support, in order to empower others, even potentially. Some of you, if you are a social media creator, you could have found there's been ups and downs. You could have found that you attracted a lot of trolls, or people came at you with some like hateful projections. You could have had some dramatic beginnings and endings as it relates to your social media following in some regard. And with this particular lunation, it aligns with Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius. If it has not already, Pluto will enter your 12th house. And so there is a lot of transformation that you are stepping into, but it's going to be beneath the surface. It's going to be in regards to your subconscious processing. It's going to be aspects of your life that are not necessarily visible. And so for some of you, I do see you could potentially want to draw back your energy a little bit, maybe not wanting to put as much out there about yourself, maybe not wanting to be on social media as much, or just maybe just wanting to keep certain elements of your life sacred. Maybe Pluto made you aware of the damage of telling everybody your business, and maybe you experienced some detrimental effects from that. And you may find that you're being guided to sort of keep certain things private, or maybe your growth is just happening in a more internal way. But either way, allow this flow of the new into your world. As your life evolves, your dreams will evolve. Do not feel that you need to stay on the path of an outdated dream if it's not something that you care to build any longer. It could be bittersweet when you release something that you always thought that you wanted, whether it's by your own volition or just understanding this isn't going to happen for me. But allow yourself to feel the gain that can come from release, and knowing that the universe does not ask us to release something unless it is making space for something even more aligned. And it's important to have faith in that. If the Capricorn full moon is landing within the 12th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. You may potentially be an Aquarius rising. You may just have 29 degrees Capricorn located within the 12th house. Either way, there is this spotlight on your inner world. See, the journey of transformation for you may have not been visible to other people. There's been a lot happening beneath the surface, but you may have not let other people be privy to it. Privy to the evolution, the transformation that has been happening within the sacred recesses of your own subconscious. Like, some of you have been doing a lot of work on yourself. You've been getting more into spirituality. You've been trusting your intuition. You could have been even diving into your own psychology. And this was something that you kept sacred. And some of you, with this full moon on Pluto, if you have not stepped into this transformation, this full moon may cast a spotlight on where it's necessary. Like, you could have been trying to put band-aids on certain traumatic experiences that this full moon is really making you look at. You know, 12th house is kind of the skeletons in our closet. It's like the things that we don't want to confront. And if you've not been confronting those things, they may start to surface with this full moon and this urgent need to evolve beyond them, to let go. And when it comes to healing, it certainly doesn't happen overnight, but there can be an energy with this full moon on Pluto around, I cannot keep coping with these things in the ways that I've been coping with them. Because for some of you, you've been running from it. You haven't been dealing with it. And when we put skeletons in the closet, it doesn't just disappear. Even if it's not visible, it might be out of sight, out of mind, but it goes somewhere. And the thing that's important to keep in mind about 12th house is that it's right next to the first house. And so whenever I'm talking with my clients, I always say, pretend you're standing on the line of your ascendant, right? The AC, the black line right there, looking out at the first house. Because first house is what's very visible. It's our identity, it's our appearance. 12th house is right by the first house. So it's everything that we can't see because we're looking out at the first house, but impacts how we view the world. So if we do not deal with our fears, with our paranoias, with our traumas, it will fundamentally impact how it is that we look out at the world. And you could be asked to start looking at that deep down. What are the subconscious loops that are playing within my mind? What have I not been dealing with? How have I been self-sabotaging because of these fears and these paranoias that have been baking within? 12th house is the house of self-undoing. And some of you could find that you've been leaning on things that are ultimately destructive in this effort to not have to deal with things, to suppress, to numb. And some of you, it doesn't even show up around necessarily substances. Like, some of you could have been overworking to avoid this stuff, or just feeling like, well, as soon as I succeed here, then I won't have to deal with this particular healing, or I won't feel that, sad inner child exists within me. As soon as I create the results that I want within the external world, these traumas and triggers that I experience in the inner world will no longer affect me. But the thing about success is that it is a magnifier. We think that these things are going to fix it, but it just enhances it to a higher level. And some of you are acknowledging that and understanding that it's time for something to change. Some of you could have had a moment where you finally were brought to your knees and sought out therapy or sought out certain spiritual tools in order to help you. You know, especially with this energy of this full moon in Capricorn, some of you have just been trying to be the strong one and just keep it all under wraps, but that could reach a boiling point if you have not been allowing yourself the space to transform and supporting yourself with the tools that will help you transform and truly evolve. Because this full moon aligns with Pluto, which is at 0 degrees Aquarius, which is, for many of you, the sign of your ascendant. And so a lot of the work that you've been doing internally is going to show within your world externally. People might remark to you, oh, did you do something different with your hair? Do you have a new skincare routine? Because something's just going to seem fundamentally different about you because you are not the same person that you were before. And yes, it can represent aesthetic overhauls, but it's an energy overhaul. And you're stepping into your power because you're no longer fearing the things that you've been running from. And some of you, that work's been done. That work has been underway since 2008 when Pluto first entered Capricorn. For others of you, if you've been ignoring, this full moon may bring in a tower moment where it's like, okay, it's time. Because with Pluto entering your sign, Aquarius, I know not all of you Aquarius risings, but a lot of you are the main character for the upcoming story that is taking shape. And so for you to step into this next timeline and thus this next era of your evolution, it's important to clean out the skeletons in your closet, to really gain empowerment from the inside out in order to step into the next iteration of who it is that you'll be. So my loves, with this Capricorn full moon hovered at the anaretic degree, conjoining Pluto, this full moon is anything but superficial. But my closing remarks and my ultimate advice when it comes to navigating this particular lunation: choose who it is that you are evolving to be rather than who you've been in the past. Yes, it can feel uncomfortable when you don't know exactly what's around the bend, both for your journey as well as for humanity. But one thing's for sure, when it comes to this full moon, we have no other option but to step into the next iteration of our growth and thus the next era of who it is that you are becoming. So my loves, thank you so much for watching. Comment below what is brewing within you when it comes to this full moon. Are you already feeling this lunation heighten within your world? I would love to know. I'd love to give a warm thank you to Keen, the sponsor of this video, for making this Capricorn full moon all signs forecast possible. Make sure to check out my link, trykeen.com/comet, to get your first 5-minute reading for just $1. So if this full moon is bringing up a lot of intense emotions, an intense desire for change and evolution, and you have certain questions around the next stage of your journey, I deeply recommend find an advisor who you connect with on Keen to support you through this next transition. My Instagram handle is @HaleyCometAstrology. My TikTok is the same. I would so love to connect with you over there. And until we meet again, drink lots of water and stay cosmic.